All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope all of you guys are having a great week so far. We're going to continue with our series previews today with Clippers Suns. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to The Volume's YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements. And if for whatever reason you guys miss one of these shows and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish, don't forget you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. All right, let's talk some basketball. So, couple series notes. The Suns are a massive favorite, minus 500 right now in Vegas. The season series was tied at 2-2, but a couple of notes. Kevin Durant did not play in either of the Suns matchups with the Clippers when he was on the roster. He did play them once with the Nets, and he played really well. He lit them up for 27 points on just 16 shots and was a plus 16 in the game, but Kawhi Leonard didn't play in that game. So not a ton to learn from the regular season here. Kawhi has not played well in his matchups with the Suns, just 17 points per game on 40% shooting, but again, against different versions of this Suns team. Paul George, the reporting is that he's certainly not going to be ready for the beginning of the series, and that likely he will miss the entire thing. So obviously a major loss for the Clippers there. Just like we did with these other series, I'm going to be hitting a couple of major matchup concerns. Then I'll make my pick, and then at the end, I'll give a case for the upset. So first, and by far what I think is the most important reason why this series I believe will be over quickly, who other than Kawhi Leonard is going to be able to consistently generate offense? Paul George is vitally important to the Clippers offensively. Their offense drops from a 117.2 offensive rating to a 111.7 offensive rating with Paul George off the floor. So for some perspective, 117.2, so with Paul George, that would rank third in the NBA this year. The 111.7, the without Paul George number, that would rank 26th. That drops down to 107.2 when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are both off the floor. So that kind of gives you an idea of what this series will be like when Kawhi needs to rest. Specifically Norman Powell-led units. So that's with Kawhi, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook all on the bench, which has been a unit that Ty Lue has gone to quite a bit here after the Paul George injury. Norman Powell-led units are scoring just 107.1 points per 100 possessions, which is really bad. So, I mean, the Paul George loss just makes it extremely difficult to imagine the Clippers generating enough points. And, you know, Kawhi's a good offensive engine, but there's a gap between what he does offensively and some of his peers at the top of the league. And he is vitally important to the Clippers, to be clear. This is not a indictment on what he is as a player. It's more just the difference between him and some of the guys at the top of the league, particularly Kevin Durant, who he's going to face in this series. He relies heavily on pull-up jump shooting. He averaged just 1.9 made shots in the restricted area this season. Here are some of his peers at his position, just so that you have some perspective. Again, Kawhi, 1.9 per game makes in the restricted area. LeBron James, 6.2. Jaylen Brown, 4.6. Jason Tatum, 4.3. Jimmy Butler, 3.8. Even when we go to some of the lower level forwards, Lauri Markkanen, 3.5. Luka Doncic is also a superstar, 3.5. Or 3.4, excuse me. Jalen Williams from the Thunder, who made some big plays down the stretch last night, 3.3. Pascal Siakam, 3.3. Even Josh Giddey, who was amazing in the play-in game last night, 3.5. So Kawhi just does not get to and finish at the rim nearly as much as his peers at the forward position. He does not apply pressure on the rim. The problem is he also is not a great playmaker. He's actually regressed a little bit this year after back-to-back seasons, averaging 5.5 assists per 36 minutes. He's actually down to 4.2 assists per 36 minutes. Again, he's going to average close to 30 points per game in this series. He's going to do it efficiently because that's what he does best. He consistently gets to his spots and he knocks down pull-up jump shots. But offensive impact goes well beyond your ability to create your own shot. That's not hard to think about. An NBA team is going to need to score usually over 100 points to win a playoff game. So if Kawhi's going to get you 30 and another 6 or 7 creating shots for his teammates, that's just not enough contribution to the offensive end if he's not also consistently warping the defense and creating plays for his teammates and consistently pressuring the rim to occupy rim protectors, collapse the defense, and open up opportunities for offensive rebounds and just generally collapsing the defense so that there are more opportunities for your shooters. So again, I really love Kawhi Leonard's game. There are a bunch of specific things he does that I have always tried to steal because I have a similar body type to him, and I'm bigger and stronger than most of the players that I play against. And I love his post footwork. I love the way he uses his physicality to get to his spots. A lot of guys who take fadeaways take him just trying to jump higher and further away from the basket than their defender. Kawhi's like, nah, I'm gonna hit you in the chest so hard that I don't even need to fade that far. I love Kawhi's game. He's a great guy to emulate as a young basketball player. There's a bunch of really good things with his form. For instance, he spreads his hands out super wide on the basketball. That helps him avoid left to right misses. The dude's a savage competitor, super competitive, super reliable at the end of games. A lot of things I love about Kawhi Leonard, but there's just a gap between him and a guy like Kevin Durant, who also doesn't apply a ton of rim pressure, but is a way, way, way better shot creator and advantage creator and playmaker. So he can average 30, but contribute so much more to the game offensively. And the reality is outside of Kawhi, they only have two other guys on the roster that can consistently create their own shot: Russell Westbrook and Norman Powell. And Ty Lue so far has been reluctant to play the two guys together. It's been kind of more of a one or the other type of thing. Norman Powell's had a good season, but he's been pretty hot and cold. He's had 20-plus point games, but he's also had 12 single-digit scoring games. He does a lot of important things really well. He shoots the three well, he can beat people off the dribble and apply rim pressure, and he can get to the foul line. But some nights he just doesn't have it, which is kind of a realistic thing with bench scorers that we see around the league. That's why they are bench scorers. With Russell Westbrook, he's actually having a phenomenal season with the Clippers. He's scoring at a rate of 19 points per 36 minutes at 56% true shooting, 9.1 assists per 36 minutes with a 2.3 assist to turnover ratio. All amazing, which is just the important value of basketball fit. Look, you guys know I wasn't a big Russell Westbrook fan, especially as someone who was rooting for the Lakers. That's the team that I root for the most in the NBA. And the reality is it just was an awful basketball fit, because the Lakers did not need to have the ball in his hands very much. When he did have it in his hands, they couldn't provide the necessary spacing for him to be effective, and he couldn't do the necessary things off ball, both defensively and offensively, to be a positive impact player for the Lakers. With the Clippers, they actually need him to have the ball in his hands. They're an excellent three-point shooting team, so they can space the floor. They desperately needed someone to push the pace more. So there's a lot of natural basketball fit things with Russell Westbrook that allowed him to have a much more successful regular season with them than he did with the Lakers. He also provides that rim pressure and playmaking that Kawhi Leonard does not. The key is going to be, can they keep him on the floor? Especially when the game slows down and they need to play through Kawhi. He's actually been hitting 33.3% of his catch and shoot threes since coming to the Clippers, which isn't terrible, but teams aren't guarding him. That's 33.3% on wide open, completely uncontested threes. In that Laker-Clipper game, the one where the Lakers were on the back-to-back where the Clippers actually looked really good. In that game, the Lakers went on a big run in that third quarter, in large part because the Lakers just started blatantly ignoring Russ, denying Kawhi Leonard the basketball, and they completely shut them down defensively, which is a big part of why Ty Lue went away from Russell Westbrook and went to Norman Powell and Bones Highland for the rest of the game, and Terrence Mann. So that's going to be one of the important details. I think they need Russ on the floor for what he does offensively in this series, but they're going to need to keep the ball in his hands as much as possible. And when he's off the ball, they're going to need to be able to be effective enough to not have to take him off the floor. I think the Clippers are going to need both Norman Powell and Russell Westbrook to play amazing in this series to have any chance. But it seems more likely than not that at least one of them will struggle, and that's a big swing factor in this series. Second big matchup piece. Can the Clippers guard the Suns? Since the Paul George injury, the Clippers have been 17th in defense. Not a big shock. You're losing one of the best defensive wings in the league. The Suns' offense. Here, I wanted to give you guys some numbers since KD joined the Suns. And again, this is against a little bit of a weak schedule, but they're undefeated. You can't ignore the fact that it's been successful. They're averaging about 118 points per 100 possessions with KD on the floor, which is really good. Not as great as you'd expect, but that's really good. I mean, it's pretty similar to what the Kyrie Dallas Mavericks have been producing. It's an excellent offense. KD's creation stats have been off the charts pretty much everywhere but pick and roll, which is strange. With the Suns, he's averaging just 0.68 points per possession on pick and rolls. That's about half what he was doing with the Brooklyn Nets. He's been one of the best pick and roll shot creators in the league this year, just hasn't materialized for points yet with Phoenix, probably just a small sample size thing. Off the charts good in isolation. 1.42 points per possession. That's like unfathomably good. That would be better than most spot-up players in the league this year. I think, if I remember correctly, Michael Porter Jr. was like the best spot-up player in the league this year, about 1.3 points per possession. So KD's been converting one-on-one baskets against set defense at a higher rate than Michael Porter Jr. has converted spot-up threes this year. That's how insanely good that is. And that's specifically within a Suns jersey, by the way. He's also been really good in the post, 1.26 point per possession. Really good off of screens, just like movement shooting possessions, 1.21 points per possession. He's shooting 59% on jump shots coming off of screens, which is insane. And he's shooting 53% on off the dribble jump shots, pretty much in line with what he's been doing all season, which is just ridiculously good. They've actually had him off ball a lot, but it's been working. This was one of my fears when they signed KD, is I thought they would put him off the ball a lot and primarily run things through Chris Paul, which has been basically what they've been doing. But like putting him in that Mikal Bridges role has been ridiculous. He's converted spot-up possessions since joining the Suns at an unbelievably high 1.67 points per possession. Point being, that's the equivalent of him shooting over 50% on threes. Like, if you shot 50% from threes, that'd be 1.5 points per possession. That's how insanely good that is. The Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton offensive combo is every bit as hard to guard as you would expect. Devin Booker is having a ridiculous shot creation season. His progressions as a playmaker and a defensive player, in my opinion, have actually turned him into a bona fide superstar. I think he's entered that class now, and I think you saw that specifically with their on-off numbers throughout the season. Chris Paul is having another magnificent pick-and-roll season. 20 players this year have passed out of the pick-and-roll at least 500 times. 20 of them. Only Luka Doncic has been more efficient than Chris Paul on those possessions. So still one of the best pick-and-roll passers in the league. In my opinion, for the Clippers to have any chance of slowing down this offense, there are two things they absolutely must do. First of all, they need to be super physical and handsy with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Why? Because both of those guys are heavily reliant on jump shooting. 97 of Kevin Durant's 128 field goal attempts since joining the Suns have been jump shots. Remember that thing I said about Kawhi about rim pressure? Again, Kevin Durant's in a similar predicament. He's less than 2 makes in the restricted area per game this year, less than 1 since joining the Suns, so he's not even really trying to get to the rim since joining the Suns. But the reason why I don't think it matters as much for him is he's so much better as a playmaker than Kawhi is. Devin Booker isn't quite as jumper heavy as KD, but 64% of his shots are jump shots. And jumpers take legs. So if you can get physical with these guys, tire them out, make them feel uncomfortable, disrupt their rhythm, you can go a long way towards leading them to have inefficient seasons. With Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, in each of their last 2 playoff runs, they each had, Kevin Durant 2021 couldn't miss a pull-up jump shot in the playoffs. Devin Booker in 2021 couldn't miss a pull-up jump shot in the playoffs. 2022, Kevin Durant went cold, Devin Booker went cold, and both of their teams had disappointing playoff exits. So again, when you rely on pull-up jump shooting, there's always a risk that you could start missing, and one of the best ways to do that is just pressure the hell out of them physically, try to wear them out, and make it so that they don't get the legs that they need into their jump shots. The second thing I think they need to do is roam off of Josh Okogie or whoever that 5th guy is in that Suns lineup, basically concede shots to them and try to blow everything up with a roaming defensive player. I actually would put Russell Westbrook in this role. Russell Westbrook has taken more point of attack responsibility since coming to the Clippers, but I actually like him best in a playmaking position. Russ is like, again, I think he's a below average defender when you put everything together, when you couple what he can do on the ball and his seeming inability to locate shooters when he's obsessed with going after rebounds. He can have some success in specific point of attack roles, typically ISO. Like Russ is an excellent isolation defender. If you try to take him on off the dribble, he just is so invested competitively in that matchup that he's going to slide his feet, and he's such a great athlete. He's amazing at defending in the post against bigger wings that try to back him down. He has some skills there, but he struggles to defend in pick and roll because he's not good at getting over the top of screens. He's capable of it, but he just doesn't commit to it enough. Like there were plenty of times this year with the Lakers where I'd see him chase over the screen and block a shot from behind, but like he's capable of that. He just doesn't invest enough in it to do it consistently. And then off ball, he has a tendency to kind of bleed into the paint area to try to get rebounds as opposed to accounting for his shooter. So put him in a role where he doesn't have to worry about a shooter and let him be a defensive playmaker. I would argue that's Russell Westbrook's best defensive trait is playmaking, flying around. There was a big play. I want to say it was in I want to say it was against the Indiana Pacers this year in Indiana, where he just randomly double teamed Buddy Hield. Not in the scheme, not as it wasn't preached from Darvin Ham or instructed from Darvin Ham in the timeout. He just randomly decided to go double Buddy Hield, and he actually made the right play and forced Buddy Hield into an impossible jump shot behind the backboard. Like, when he can freelance without the threat of having to worry about what's going on off ball, he can actually make a lot of plays there. So I would put Russell Westbrook in a position where he can roam around off the ball. The Suns are going to be in an interesting predicament on who they're going to play in that fifth spot. I think throughout this playoff run, it's mostly going to be a Koji. We'll see in different matchups because this Clippers team doesn't really have a superstar guard, so to speak. And I think Kawhi's a little too big for Josh Okogie, so I wouldn't be surprised if like the big adjustment you see from the Suns, should they drop a game in the series, is I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up starting Torrey Craig and putting him on Kawhi Leonard, because Torrey Craig's having a good spot-up season. That's the problem with the Josh Okogie thing. He's by far Phoenix's best point of attack defender, but he's converting spot-up possessions at just 0.87 points per possession, which is literally atrocious, especially when you consider the quality of the shots that he's been getting. So the Suns have a lot of guys that have had better spot-up shooting seasons. Torrey Craig, even Ish Wainwright's been really good. Landry Shamet, Terrence Ross, Damian Lee shoots the shit out of the basketball. But none of those guys are as good defensively as Josh Okogie. So that's going to be the balance that those guys are going to have to figure out. But again, specifically in this series, I don't think they need Josh Okogie as much because it's not as much of a point of attack type of series as some of the other matchups that they'll face later on in the playoffs should they advance, which I expect them to. Overall, though, just to kind of put a bow on that, to have any chance of slowing down the Phoenix Suns offense, they need to play physical, and they're going to need somebody to roam around and blow things up, likely Russell Westbrook. Last but not least, can the Clippers get away with not needing Kawhi to guard Kevin Durant? One of the most important elements of this Clippers upset that we're going to point out what their pathway is here in a minute. One of the most important elements is Kawhi needs to outplay KD. And with all of the stuff that KD's doing off screens with the Suns, if he's chasing him on ball screens and off ball screens all series long, it just takes a lot out of Kawhi's legs, and his legs just don't have the stamina that they used to have. And we've seen several times in this particular season him start to fade towards the end of games as he gets worn out. We saw that big time in that Milwaukee Bucks game when Giannis started guarding him, right? So, again, if you could put Kawhi in some sort of off-ball role where he's chilling more, potentially in a situation where he can, maybe that's another option. You could put him on a guy like on a guy like Josh Okogie instead of Russell Westbrook and have him roam around and try to blow things up. But whatever you can do to try to alleviate him needing to guard Kevin Durant. Like, to put it simply, if Nick Batum can take the Kevin Durant assignment and do it well, that goes a long way towards freeing up energy for Kawhi Leonard to try to control the game offensively. Like, maybe Terrence Mann can be that guy. Maybe Terrence Mann can, even though he's a little too short, maybe he's physical enough and strong enough and plays hard enough to try to disrupt KD. But if they can find some way to get Kawhi off of KD, I think without losing too much ground offensively, I think that would go a long way towards giving them a chance. I'm picking the Suns to sweep this series. Pretty simple. I think KD's the best player in the series. I think the Suns' offense and defense is better than the Clippers' offense and defense. I think the Clippers have a severe lack of shot creation that's going to make them easy to guard as the series progresses and the Suns make adjustments. And last but not least, like, the reason why I pick a sweep, this might end up being the only sweep I pick. We'll see what the 1-8 matchups end up being. But the reason why I'm picking a sweep is the Clippers don't have a good home court advantage. One of the most common ways you'll see a team get a game is they're up 2-0 or they're up 3-1 or they're up 3-0 or 2-0, and the team's at home and they're playing desperate and the crowd's involved and it's this raucous environment and they play incredibly hard and they get a win. And the Clippers just don't have that type of energy. I wouldn't be surprised if a third of their arena is full of Suns fans. And so I'm picking the Suns to sweep. The case for the Clippers is pretty simple. Kawhi needs to outplay KD. I also think that Ivica Zubac just resoundingly outplaying DeAndre Ayton, like physically bullying him on both ends of the floor, which is something he's capable of doing. That would go a long way. Norman Powell and Russell Westbrook need to have excellent seasons. And last but not least, they need to play a super physical brand of basketball on KD and Devin Booker and hope that they go cold as pull-up jump shooters. But I see that as extremely unlikely. This is one of, I think, the easiest series to predict in this first round, and it's just a product of Paul George being out. Totally different series if Paul George was available, but it doesn't look like he's going to be. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. We've got 3 more series previews to do, if I remember correctly. We got, or actually we have 4. We've got Sixers Nets, which we're going to be doing later on today. I'm not sure if that'll go up tonight or Friday morning. And then Friday night, we're going to actually tie what I think are the 3 most boring first round playoff series all into one, which is going to be the 1-8 matchups in both conference, and then Celtics Hawks. One of the big reasons why we're doing all 3 of those at the same time too is we won't know who's playing who until late Friday night. And Saturday morning, I'm actually traveling out of the country, going up to Canada for my wife's 30th birthday to do some skiing. So still going to be covering all the games, just going to be doing it on the road this week, but it's just going to be really difficult for me to have the time to watch all the necessary film to put together series previews for those series on such short notice coming out of Friday night. Keep an eye. Saturday night, we'll be doing a breakdown of, I think, just the Warriors game because I'm flying in so late. And then the following morning, we'll break down the rest of the Saturday games. And then we'll be going later in the afternoon on Sunday. As always, I appreciate you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.